Let me try it.
Hello and welcome to the first session of the seminar Publishing Workshop Methodologies for Writing and Dissemination, taught by Maria Ines Plaza Lazo. This workshop presents publishing as a daily practice. Like memes, social media posts, and conversations, publishing can take a meaningful role in the hyper-circulation of information if done reflectively, or just be a grain in a pile of sand if just following the trends. This workshop looks to discern collectively between knowledge production and wishful thinking, between real obsessions and superficial purposes. It will focus on the publishing of Arts of the Working Class, AWC, a multilingual street journal on poverty and wealth, art and society. Both as a political pamphlet and a Gesamtkunstwerk, transdisciplinary art, AWC turns into a tool both of active organization and deep research. The two sides of this coin couldn't be more contrasting. For that reason, the seminar invites Erin Segal, social worker and publisher of Thick Press, to talk about her work, as well as Jonas von Lenthe, to address the archival materials that are today. Maria Ines Plaza Lazo is a founder and publisher of Arts of the Working Class, the multilingual street newspaper for art and society, wealth and poverty from Berlin. She just started working at Kunsthalle Baden-Baden on communication strategies for the institution at the intersection between curating, publishing, and public relations. Maria, you can take it over from here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Can everybody hear me? Matthias, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yes. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Publishing Things That Belong to Everyone is a title that I have chosen that should make justice to the practice that we've been developing for already 6 years, together with my co-founder, Paul Sochatzky, and until the end of 2022 with curator Alina Kolar, and since 2023 with the lead of Amelie Jakubek, Dalia Maini, Elisa Fuensalida, and of course an endless, wonderful network of people that are connected to the questions that are posed in the very title of our publication, Arts of the Working Class, which are two. And these are, if art belongs to everyone, or if art is for everyone, how does it look like? So it's not only a question of etymology, but it's also a question of its socialization. And the second is, if art belongs and can be for everyone, why is it still considered an elitist product? And for this, I would like to connect to three points of departure for practice, namely art criticism, writing and collaboration that are looked from different ways. The first is very clearly an academic and theoretical approach to the arts, as well as writing and collaboration coming both from, let's say, on the verge between activism and an academic practice, but also forms of survival in the 21st century. As Matthias has already mentioned, this workshop invites everyone to collectively discern between knowledge production and wishful thinking, between real obsessions, superficial purposes, and necessary things. So this might sound cynical, but our departing point is the self-critical reflection that we do daily on Arts of the Working Class as a political pamphlet and as a Gesamtkunstwerk. And both sides of this coin couldn't be more contradictory. How can you be a political pamphlet at the same time answer to another system of values? And this is for us, one of our favorite questions that we like to answer according to the context and the political development as we see globally. So what are the outcomes of this workshop? What we want is to build a collaborative exchange within and beyond the workshops period, meaning arts of the working class practice is inherently collaborative and is always open to learning multiple forms of editing, journalistic, academic, and anti-institutional research. So everyone is invited herewith to see this also as a very specific process during the News Center's learning process, but also to strengthen the links between critical thinking and care labor beyond this realm. Two more points that are important to us, and I say it in plural, is because my team, even though they're not present today, are aware of this process that we're handling together, and that is to explore ways in how archival materials for contested contexts are needed today more than ever, and understanding that exploration as a tool for contemporary research and politics of cultural production. Last but not least, participants of this workshop are expected to participate with a text. This text can be an abstract for an idea that could also could infiltrate in the networks of arts of the working class, but it can also be something else. It can have any form or subject previously agreed with myself, but also this can also, and this is my personal invitation, I would love to get involved to improve your own publishing ideas if you have any. And if you would like to see the publishing practice more into a curatorial practice or an activist practice or the in-betweenness of it all. So this text, hopefully we can discuss later with our guests. So let me introduce you to them. The first week, we will look into the issues today. And the first hour of this workshop will contain a small introduction. And when I say small, it's because I could talk about this forever. 1 hour, less than an hour between issues, first and the 24th issue of Arts of the Working Class, and then go into a conversation between about if you had any chance to read the issues 25 to 29 that I shared with you. So that could be a start that I would like to enjoy with you. The second and the third week, we have guests, and we will delve into two different publications. The first was originally Deepa Iyer's Social Change Now, but after a conversation with Erin Segal, we decided that we would like to show you a draft or a work in progress, something that has not been published yet, and that is the Encyclopedia for Radical Care, in which also Arts of the Working Class appears as a collaborator. Week 3 will be a conversation and afterwards a presentation by Jonas von Lenthe from Wirklichkeit's books of the book English in Berlin, written by Moshtari Hilal and Sinturan Varataraya. And last but not least, the so-called pitches and proposals as a closing for this first encounter. So it's packed, I know, but let's say I don't know how to work differently. This 3 weeks, the first 3 weeks have the name of overarching topics of Arts of the Working Class. Bursts of Solidarity was the overarching topic for the year 2023. Loops of Power for 2022, and A City as a Stateless Mind. It's the first title of our first issue. I'll come later deeper into this poetic and very ambivalent, sometimes cynical titles. Yes, this is Arts of the Working Class. The definition you can also find on the website. Important is, and one of our vendors here, striking a pose in our one of our pickup stations in Berlin. We have many where people can pick up as many copies as they want, and without the necessary to pay for it, as we pay everything through advertisement, donations, funding programs that allow our street newspaper be part of a bigger curatorial project, an institutional project, or be in itself a tool for further conversations that are not possible within institutions, cultural institutions, but also political ones, mostly non-for-profit. And yes, I'll be happy to tell you everything about this. A cute pixel picture of Julie, Cho, and Erin Segal, who will present the Encyclopedia of Radical Care, and what Thick Press is: a collaboration between two old friends, a social worker and a graphic designer. It has been inspired by utopian organizations and feminist presses, and inspired and admiring and influenced by them. Every tool and every publication out of Thick Press is beautiful distillation of what collaboration and care can be. Wirklichkeit's books is actually Jonas von Lenthe, who holds also a curatorial practice, currently working at the head of as a head of archive at the Kunstverein Munich. Both with Jonas and with Erin, we've met in different art book fairs as we work with beyond working hours and working conditions that would get us out of precarity, but the wealth that we get out of this kind of collaborations is just, priceless. And I mentioned this because it shouldn't be an example of how to work within oppressive frames of the lack of money and austerity measurements that do not respond to the reality. But here we are. So let me start from the beginning. Keiner hat Kontrolle über sein Leben. Nobody has control over their own life. This was the first meme or headline that we gave Arts of the Working Class. And if you haven't hold this thing in your hands, let me introduce to you what and how this cover works. Arts of the Working Class logo, you can see this tired hammer and sickle.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Are you supposed to have a presentation on the screen now?
Yes, I am.
Because I don't think anyone is seeing it, and I'm not seeing it either.
Okay, so you've been watching my beautiful face the whole time. Shit.
Oh, now we can see it. Sorry.
Now we can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sorry if you missed this part. I'm just gonna go briefly through this. The text, the schedule, the syllabus, Arts of the Working Class, beautiful vendor, Erin and Julie, Moshtari, sorry, this is not Moshtari, this is Jonas. And I was just entering this section. Yes, keiner hat Kontrolle über sein Leben. I don't have control over this presentation. This was the first meme and headline. It was important for us that this would be kind of like the last thing that we produce at the end of an issue. As a first issue, this wasn't, we didn't have the horizon that we enjoy now. We didn't know where to go with this, but I just arrived in Berlin, had no money, no prospects, or what, had no job. But I had this ambition to curate a show with Paul Sochatzky, who is my co-founder, for his exhibition. But he never paints his works with too much time in advance, just a few days. So I proposed an editorial project, and based on what he originally wanted to call art and critique of the working class, took a pluralistic road with arts of the working class. The typo was developed together with the designer Hans Löffler, who after years of suffering of a deep burnout, he decided to give it a try to this love of his, and that is to have a perfectly curated, perfectly layouted issue, as his practice was from the major magazines. We didn't have money. We had a fiscal partner, and that fiscal partner was Savvy Contemporary, who helped us to get money from BMW. BMW's cultural manager is Thomas Gerast, and he kindly listened to what we wanted to do and believed immediately that this could be something that, even though it doesn't appeal or it could be considered as an asset to the cultural projects or the program of this company, let's call it what it is for now, is could be something that he could infiltrate through this construction. So having a title as such, you would wonder how we would consider, having this squat / occupied historical term of the working class being matched with such source of income. But I must say, out of lack of alternatives, and out of let's say a form of solidarity that, let's say, in 2018 wasn't a thing, we could see that this could also shape our desire to share knowledge, and understand that this desire has been harnessed by the overwhelming power of technology and the precarity that we have been facing in cities, now completely gentrified. But back then in 2018, there was a force that was invisible, and the interconnection between struggles, social, financial, aesthetical, epistemic struggles were not being graspable enough. And that same year, Mark Zuckerberg was facing a congressional hearing about the Cambridge Analytica scandal that we all know led to the rise of populist financial right-wing disaster that we are looking at in the US and everywhere else. But his answer was, "Senator, we run ads." And that kind of stick with me very deeply. It's like, what? This dystopian statement, this seemingly naive way of justifying Facebook and means to sell what it had been thought as an utopian society after just realizing this was just a high school project, is surrounding our daily lives and is surrounding our preferences. It's showing me ads and monetizing our thoughts. This is now like something that as a common ground, everybody would understand that perfectly without me giving this introduction. But back then we felt kind of stateless as in we just couldn't think about this exhibition without thinking of all the forces, all those waves turning our labor, not labels, into something that was completely out of reach for ourselves. So we wouldn't able to exist or in a society without the means that we would have forged because money is being placed somewhere else. So this is a very preoccupying situation back then and now unavoidable. And this is the first issue. We launched it during the gallery weekend in Berlin, which coincided with the 1st of May, which for me was, again, very telling. So you have for the every year, you have in April, for once, people being flown in to buy art and to meet and pretend that they care about art discourses and the labor of artists and curators and art workers working independently, but that wasn't the case. And this is an issue that was looking into that, and that is why we called it a city as a stateless mind. Berlin is an imploded city, and at the same time, our minds going down with it. We decided to keep poetic and enigmatic titles, and at the same time persist in the form of truisms, the kind of truth that we wanted to give a glimpse to with these memes. So utopia is not a promise, we're a joint venture. It's already reflecting on the first issue's genesis, taking utopia, a universalist, idealistic pursuit that will, it's born close to the rise of the ideologies and the terms in which the left and right of politics is being understood after the French Revolution. And then we take joint venture, which is the most, it's a neoliberalist term par excellence, right? But with the second issue, we tried to give a glimpse on that and see through contemporary art practices coming together in different texts and interventions by our contributors. It's important to say at this point that this is a multilingual newspaper, meaning everyone, every migrant and every expat and every person that will be not from Germany would be invited to write in their language of choice. And with that, make something further visible that it's not like Germany, the state of Germany and the right-wing movement is fighting so much against, and that is the plural and diverse and wonderful society that holds Germany and Europe so laboriously. May the Bridges I Burn Light the Way looks at both ends of a revolutionary act, and that is the will to reach utopias and the urge to provoke dystopia as within art practices. And with that, also responding to what I just mentioned, anticipating the social struggles that are now being suffocated under reactionary movements, and hopefully there's some turn at the end of, or around the corner. The words were fuck. Excuse my French. The issue number 3, the same year, we understood that we need to not only work with institutions to sell ads, which we would curate and look into how they would fit with the content and be in constant communication with it, but that we need to work with institutions as the ones also holding a substantial amount of the budget and the resources to hold it together. So Alina Collard had an exhibition at the Austrian Cultural Center in London, and this was, let's say, our main sponsor. And her exhibition was called Nostalgia, dedicated to the quote-unquote overwhelming number of anniversaries in 2018 and its abysms. And I go on. Her beautiful text on it that wraps it up beautifully. With curiosity, we notice their paradoxical relationship with the present. It's been 10 years since the financial crash, but monetary values are not more balanced, and speculation bubbles are bigger than ever. It's been 50 years since LSD came into popular use, opening the doors of perception, but perception seems to be even narrower today than it was back then. It's been 80 years since Austria's annexation to Germany, and yet the sound of music is still remembered as a classic. For those who don't know it, disclaimer, this musical with Julie Andrews, okay, whatever. End of disclaimer. Sweden depiction of resistance towards fascism's expansion in Europe rather than the fall of aristocracy, what it really was. So a Marxist approach that is being like, it's slowly taking shape with the 3rd issue, where we are really understanding, okay, we're doing this. We cannot turn back. We just need to go on. By the end of 2018, we were printing 10,000 copies of Art of the Working Class, or better said, we started with 10,000 copies that we would hide in basements and give a hotline, which was my own number, private phone number, for people to call if they would like to sell it on the streets. So I would take them with me to a gig that I would have, or the place that I would be working parallelly to the production of the paper, and let it grow slowly. By the 4th issue, we decided to start thinking in overarching topics and understanding how a thread can be slowly being shapen. With a first meme also that was translated into another language, and this is Turkish, for is Alex a man or a woman? And the response is Alex is a Pisces, and this is an issue that we were looking into, the obsession of let's say care, or like the harassment of a word as care. And by the end of 2018, but the entire cultural battles between having in Germany specifically a more inclusive language and just holding to a quote unquote neutral masculine, which is still ridiculous to say, but yes, we wanted to look into what was happening, what people, or like against this forms of inclusion and care, were addressing in a way of dealing with identity politics in an outdated way. And the dilemma of existing with these obsessions. Those were discussions and debates, and somehow I miss, not because of what they were, but because there was kind of like a space where people were just not necessarily destroying themselves with argumentations, but yeah, it was for me, it's just like another world. 2019, the second year of publishing of Arts of the Working Class, we decided to focus on solutions and deviations of the so-called capitalist dreams of future. So this idea of the future. So we were already thinking, okay, so we have to think of future, but what the fuck is that? So what do we do if we don't have resources, if we don't, meaning we don't have money, we don't have time, we have to run for advertisement, we have to run for funding applications, we have to run for having a safe space for contributions to appear, and everything around us is just like increasingly polarizing. This year was devoted to that. Alina Popa died that month, the month of February of 2019, and we dedicated the cover to her with the meme, "The body is as alien as the world," and a poem next to it. So poems will also play an important role on the covers of Arts of the Working Class and through its pages, such as here with the 6th issue, where Mark Fisher, who would have died 10 years ago, would write so beautifully that we also decided to quote him as a poet. Very ambivalent way of addressing the work of a capitalist realist, but we consider that the forms of exclusivity and power dynamics that he would address in his work was the most clear and most somehow sublime way of dealing with reality. That year, we also decided to understand the question, okay, unchained change, and how do we do it on a local basis if we want to circulate not only in Berlin, but also in other cities of the world. This question would start arising with these issues in 2019, because there are suddenly questions coming from Idaho, or coming from Santiago de Chile, or coming from Jakarta, asking if they can buy Arts of the Working Class. We have an Instagram account that back then wasn't really functioning at all, because we really didn't want to engage with social media. But at a certain point, the kind of visibility and interest that was being generated beyond our capacity, our own capacity of, let's say, planning ways in which visibility and knowledge sharing could be conditioned, was just exploding. The Americas issue is the one that we decided to focus on as a section, because we were traveling to New York and to Quito, thanks to collaborations with institutions that would invite us to participate editorially. And just like with the 3rd issue, this was already the financial support that was coming through. It was also a very fun issue to do, because it was also the rise of the the activist within the parliament of the US, and the campaign of Bernie Sanders to turn president, and to the will or the call to abolish the billionaire class, as Luc Savage wrote in Jacobin magazine, which we guerrilla style translated into German, was something that you could read and also discuss in different circles and different pods. Yes, we would also allow ourselves editorials such as we shouldn't have to babysit the beast, climate crisis, inhumane living and working conditions, widening quality. This is yeah. This for me is like reading after years of like setting it aside. Reminds me of the level of anxiety that all of this produced, but at the same time, yeah, it was clear there was a certain kind of clarity that allowed us to, yeah, jump over between different forms of change and or the pursuit of change, and address society as such, not only like particularly or through particularism or fragmentation. Yeah, the 9th issue, a further care issue, I was looking into observations from around the world that transcends the form of discourse that I've been addressing so far, and at the same time holding on to the tensions between the poetic and the political language. But for this time, art of the working class is being understood as a collective tool to rethink, re-understand, and redefine aspects of art workers' social lives. And we start also using the terminology art workers more vehemently. From the art world's care crisis over the use of creativity and imagination for collective care towards conserving, restoring, and archiving neglected histories, taking the labor of love to the streets, acting upon the term care as a social concept. These were the things that we were interested in manifesting editorially to break with capitalism's utilization and abuse of ideas by trying to be as equitative and fair as possible with everyone working with us. So everybody would get paid, even though it were only 50 euros per text. We were just making a ridiculous amount of money by that time. I guess I could just only pay myself like 500, 600 euros out of this actual work and need to sustain myself from other things. And that was the same with everyone else at the team. But it was like a family business. We would just take care of each other and see how much, who needs what, and very openly deal with resources. This has changed because we have been growing. From 10th issue on, we start to get more and more interest of people working with the paper. And again, without the resources, how do you hold to the idea of an editorial office without falling apart immediately? If the money that would come month by month wouldn't arise. So this kind of reflections and how I'm addressing content, form, and resources are deliberate. To turn away from capitalist hegemonical ways of reflection and approach to the arts and cultural production, we need to take those terms and those relationships and flip them over. Many people would say, how do you do this, right? This is not sustainable enough. And for the 11th issue, which we were editing by March 2020, this question felt really difficult to answer, because we're here on a workshop that would be easily categorized, easy to categorize within the rubric independent publishing, but we were dependent on so many things. And this is like the dichotomy we wanted to make clear. So the idea of democracy, of community, of unions, of livelihood, how do we really take care of this if there is no other way but to approach things under capitalist terms? So I honestly don't know how we survived that year, but we decided to say back to normal, nein danke. So we understood also by this time that the work we were doing was impossible to deviate from the idea that the COVID pandemic would change everything. So we were lucky that we got a call from the group that curated the German pavilion for the architecture biennial in 2020. That was then delayed by a year to focus on the future, but this time in a more interesting way. So externalizing it from the idea of prosperity and progress, and focusing on the year 2038 as the year in which supposedly the UN, the EU, and everybody in power should understand that this 1.5 degrees, you should reach the capacity to go below this this temperature rising, which is of course an illusion, but the discussions around the question of architecture, of relational architecting, property, collective governance, planetary rights, material resources, circular economy, technology, culture, were suddenly, so vivid, and so vivid that whatever we say about the future, the incalculable dimensions of the present back then were not far away from us. So the curatorial team, which was led by Olaf Gravert and Christopher Roth, Arno Brandelhuber, called it the New Serenity. There was a very fun project that allowed us to overcome our holes, and we had a lot of fun decoding social relations, reconnecting with ecosystem, with people that such as Charlotte Malter-Barth, to think of a moratorium for building and trying to understand the growth of cities and the degrowth of consumerism lively. The meme of this issue, the headline was, "The main problem was never technology." And this is the first issue that we flip. So on the other side, you would read Arts of the Working Class in Italian, Arti della classe lavoratrice. And the other side of this meme was the main problem was culture. So as cultural production, and the forms of representation, the forms of presentation of everything here listed was the actual problem why we didn't, even if the world and those in power have all the tools of necessary to change society's course from its absolute destruction, to be readable both in English and in Italian, because we would try to, for the first time, to circulate through the cities of Italy, but also with the language that people would understand. And we did this not because we were working within this project, but because of the feedback of vendors. So vendors of arts of the working class would engage beautifully and voluntarily to give us feedback on how people are reading this on the streets. Because what we didn't want to do, what we are forced to now, is to have metrics for readership, right? So we were like slowly, so we were still like below zero on our resources, but still we were able to hold on to different kind of collaborations to move on, and to let the paper still grow and let people on the streets keep on nurturing or helping themselves out of extreme poverty. What vendors would say is, it's interesting how people that cannot read English won't listen to me, or wouldn't feel as attracted to the paper as those who are polyglots, or those who have this an immediate access to the visual challenge that we're placing in every cover. This issue, number 13, had 2 front pages where English and Russian would meet, and the artist Simon Fujiwara would prepare a beautiful collage that was already reflecting into the different the dichotomic relationships between the so-called East and West, and 2 languages that at the same time stand for a contradictory European concept of economic and ideological vision, at least most vividly during the Cold War. And this division as still being fought over cultural production. Yes, so it was an issue on what we called Eurothanasia, as Europe is just a place that it's just hard to revive, or seeing the rise of nationalism, financialized populism taking over something that it's also betraying itself, or maybe another discussion to to have about this. I'm just gonna fly through the next 10 issues, because I see that it's almost 9 p.m. ZET, and I want you to stay tuned. So I hope you're not overwhelmed with information. I'll just show you very quickly in the next 5 to 10 minutes what we did between 21 and 23. So Künste der Arbeiterklasse is the first time we deliver a paper in German, with a German title at least, addressing the housing crisis in Germany, but also worldwide, right? So by that year, by December 2020, January 21, almost 80 million people worldwide were directly affected by forced displacement. Now there are, of course, even more if you look at the current occupation of the Gaza Strip, Yemen, and the list is endless. Simultaneously, cities are today even still facing an unprecedented eviction crisis. The fear of displacement doesn't only affect residents of war zones, it is the ground, mostly European and American, US American, on which radicalization, xenophobia, and conspiracy theories are currently flourishing. This issue, together with Andrea Butner, would look at depictions of poverty, and at the same time we would have conversations with local authorities, such as the cultural minister of Berlin and the Ministry for Foreign Affairs, to look into how they would respond to this questions of autonomy and independence of the art and cultural field, and how this is also facing an already lost battle against landlords. So reevaluating the wealth of the world and reigniting our collective imagination was what we wanted to do. And we gratefully had a collaboration with the Gwangju Biennale in South Korea, thanks to curators such as Daphne Ayas and Natasha Ginwala, who invited us to be part of that exhibition. And this is also the first issue that we had in South Korean, with a wonderful collage by Alberta Whittle in the cover, and the meme is unreadable, but it reads, "The pursuit of the new defines imperialism," paraphrasing the author Ariela Aisha Azulay, commentating what the colonial theorists recognized as the dislocation between the colonial version of the world and the concrete historical experience of the colonized. Marx's heritage of the quote-unquote historical materialism, directed in the 20th century by the control of the nation state, lies in opposition to the historical experiences that since the 1960s have demanded the quote-unquote democratic self-reproduction of the society. So the year 2021 will be dealt and will be formed by us confronting obstacles that impede this formation of a strong alternative imaginary beyond the colonized. It's very hard to discern this for now, but I'm just gonna go briefly to the next one, Arts de la classe ouvrière, the one that we presented in collaboration with the festival in Vevey, the nest or the place of birth of a multinational such as Nestlé, and the festival also from grassroots wanted to go to Vevey and, like in a form of David and Goliath, be a counterposition to the way in which food is being sold to the world, with bottling of water, etc., and offering for the first time an issue that would try to look into everything that we wanted to condense on the Colomania in a form that is also more cryptic and more playful and creative, such as a nutritional guide, a menu, and at the same time considered birthday cake, because was also launched on the 1st of May with the wonderful work of Diana Sutella and Camilo Honron on the cover. I see the chat is open, but I cannot really open it. So if someone would like to interrupt me, please open your mic. If that's not the case, I'll ignore the chat and continue. Is that all there is? Young Chan Heavy Industries, this wonderful duo and collective that also play with the propagandistic dynamics, visual dynamics in Korea and North Korea, and at the same time place in a also multilingual realm, and we're kind to do this intervention for this issue that we presented in Portugal with also another festival that invited us to work on emotional, physical, and social retreat, and the reinterpretation of care structures, which keeps on being one of our focus points. Yes. A huge contrast to it, the same as with the Colomania and Food Eats the Soul, was the counter-conspiracy issue that with beautiful Sandra Muyinga's ghosts on the front cover already plays on what Frederick Jameson said famously: it has become easier to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism. And suddenly trying to have a more, coming from the holistic interventions and moments with the works in Portugal with Ponto do Orvalho and the beautiful people of Ponto do Orvalho, and of Food Culture Days in Vevey, that we would look into the hard stuff and the dark side of this research, and that is conspiracies. This issue, we were also very lucky to work with the National Historical Museum of Germany for the exhibition on Marx and capitalism, who also made it possible to weave virtual and material cosmologies, blur epistemologies and beliefs, while swapping roles between reasoners and conspirators complotting against regimes, finding ourselves in the labyrinth of information, as with associate editor Max Haven. This is one of my favorites. This is a collaboration with the Bonner Kunstverein, who allowed us the access to the state of David Medalla, who you can see here with the work Bambi Shitting Dollars, and the meme and headline Stop Being Rich. As for the fashion issue, we found it morbidly funny to call it Over My Dead Body, dwelling with two sides of the object of desire par excellence, my body. But that time, everybody was also talking about this supermodel and artist, forgot her name. But this new fetishization of my body and the forms of seemingly, independent forms of embodiment that were happening on Instagram and TikTok more and more intensely, were things that we were inexplicably interested, and also on the inexplicable power of accumulation, value and profit, modern slavery, invisible pollution, through the sale of cheap and fast fashion, and starting to put something, and this is also something we improved in 2021 with contributors back then, just as Max Haven we had the luck to work with so many associate editors, meaning we would not only put our own already complicated perspectives on the loop, but we would also invite others to define the issues and the chapters that we have. Yes, this issue, we also conducted it as an abolitionist handbook to the overarching topic of loops of power. So we were asking ourselves, if sustainability and fashion ever come together, we will have reached nirvana. And in this form, we were also being self-reflective in things that we desire ourselves for our own bodies too. Yes. Issue 21, the issue on forced displacement and tourism. I need to make a correction. This was not only the fashion issue, it was the fashion and trash issue. The cover, the flip cover is not seen here, but that is embedded into the strategies that we will would exercise with this within this year, meaning what are these, if we want to break the loop of power, the loop of capitalism, we have to look into the polarized notions that we had already arrived to by 2022. Same as here, right? Forced displacement and tourism. And we wanted to think these issues as something beyond borders, beyond perception, beyond colonial relations. How to think the very presence of forcibly displaced individuals and immigrants in Europe and the narrative, the representative narrative of the EU itself. It was the same for music. Music and propaganda was this other issue, and we had the beautiful exercise of seeing notes and scores as a language. So we would give Arts of the Working Class its own jingle, and the cover would have a headline and meme in English, which was a quote. I must confess, I still believe. You know which song it is. We would just put it here also as a music score. Kindness and destruction was an issue that we also would translate into Turkish and circulate in the city of Istanbul, looking into radicality in care or care in radicality. Simply the kindness of people that we like and that we also want to express our love in this struggle and search to destroy systemic inequality. And last but not least, the sports and disability issue, asking if we perform, what do we perform for, and how this context can be placed not as an hedonistic privilege to be on a stage, but as a daily step against internalized neoliberal self-exploitation. Yes, I'll stop it here. I know this has been a lot, but I don't know. Oh, wait. So I'm still showing? No.
Yeah.
Here.
Now no longer.
So sorry for behaving like a as if I wouldn't use this daily. Anyways, thank you for listening. Sorry, I just couldn't engage with the chat before. How's everybody feeling? Shall we do a little break? Or shall we jump immediately to questions and have I don't know, a quick round before a break? Maybe you can also share an emoticon or raise your hand for those who want to make a break. And those who would, or you can just share your emoticon, like share your, you want the questions. Okay, Michelle, thank you for your enthusiasm. Okay, so let's do a quick round of questions before coming to the break. Is that okay? Wonderful. Okay, so who would like to raise the first one? I see Jacopo.
See, hi, sorry, I'm a bit voiceless. Anyway, I wanted to ask regarding the way you treat the insertions and the advertisement inside Arts of the Working Class. How do you relate with institutions? If you have some sort of check and balance method, I mean, something to, in some way in which you decide with whom, with whom not. Also regarding to non-profit, when it comes to foundations, we know they have always a lot of issues in terms of funding and stuff like that?
Yeah, thank you for your question. And this is a very important one. As mentioned at the beginning, so let's say BMW is not necessarily the kind of like the financial partner of our dreams. We are diametrically apart from each other, both ideologically, in terms of climate, care, use of fuel, the use of materials that are also that are still used in the automobile industry that allowed child labor, etc. So where do we start with that balance? And for us, it was very clear that we need to deal with the contradictions and not set them pro forma aside. So first, we didn't have a choice, and we're still thankful for those 5K that allow us to print and pay everyone. But yeah, we try to still balance that, right? I mean, as far as we can. For example, Dussmann is one of the largest bookshops in Germany. After research, we found out that they produce and sell weapons, specifically to countries that are, let's say, protagonists in the wars today. So we decided not to, even though that was a painful thing to do. Painful because we just needed in that sense. Painful as well because we just didn't find the necessary rhetorics to deal with that as well, specifically. So I guess that would be my 2 pennies in that regard, and that is also constantly moving. But yeah, this is our current financial reality.
Thank you.
But thank you. Yeah,
there's not.
Yes. No, but we all. No. It's
nobody's safe from. I mean, of course, you have to come to some compromise. It was also something.
Well, yeah.
No, I totally get the reasoning.
Mm-hmm. No, it's yes. I cannot be as fast right now because there are so many thoughts popping up right now. But I think there is also the most impressionable challenge for me is just to not stop it somewhere and just like lean back, but it's just like try to go across and embrace the struggle and embrace also the contradiction and find the words for that, because words connect us. And I do believe that there is a high amount of miscommunication and misunderstanding about how to deal with this, the financial and legal responsibility if you are creating something like this. And there are expectations nevertheless, because that also mirrors also to the people that are working with us, who do not need to have this kind of considerations, but would write for the paper out of different motivations. But yeah, that's maybe also another conversation that we can have during this workshop. Yeah, thank you, Michelle.
Hi, yeah, thank you so much. I really love what the design is doing, and I know it's super hard to balance. Like, we all live under capitalism, so it's like, how do we balance that? And so it's like, no, I mean, I'm an American, obviously, you can tell by my voice, but yeah, we have that struggle with everything that we do in this country. And we just had a big Substack debate about it, because Substack got in trouble for their issues. And so, yeah, like, but I was wondering if you ever thought about taking design digital, like, with us, like, to make money or something like that, but yeah, so.
I think I don't follow the second question, the second part of the question. What do you mean with taking it digitally?
So digital, like, so if you take it and you put it into like a website format, and it can be like a lot cheaper to produce after the initial design, and then like and then you can just update it consistently, and then like it can like that's how we make all our money in America. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we do have a website. It's
Okay.
called artoftheworkingclass.org, where you can find everything I
thank you.
have shared with you so far. And yeah, I mean, there's almost like a parallel work that we're doing there. But our reason to exist is the distribution on the streets and the redistribution of the wealth that we have contact with, right?
Okay.
So I have a roof under my above my head. I have a partner that can support me financially, so I can still do this non-for-profit work that I've been doing for years, even though I'm just like constantly exploiting myself because I want to pursue something else. And we are printing now over 70,000 copies. So it's 7 more times people selling the paper on the street. We don't see a penny out of that.
Yeah.
And yet, yeah, it's contradictory. Some vendors might do more money than we do individually. That's of course only a speculation, and also according to the day, maybe. But that is also the crucial part of our labor.
Yeah, I am fascinated by
But
this. Yeah, in America, all our Zines are trying so desperately to like pump the ads, pump the likes, like so I like this this ethics driven like yeah, model. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Michelle. Peggy.
So talk a little bit about international distribution. I'm really fascinated by the use of different letter forms and writing systems. And it's something I really would like to teach more. And I teach graphic design. I'd like to actually run a class on different writing systems. So I'm really interested that you're doing that. But when you're distributing that, are you sending that out to a mixed audience, or are you just doing individual issues? And if you could talk to some of that, I would be interested.
Of course. Thank you for the question. Well, the right person to say something about this would be the designers we work with. I'm just a publisher, and for 5 years I've been the editor, but there is a high amount of decision agency and decision capacity from the people that we work with on the aesthetical level. I mentioned Hans Löffler at the beginning, but it's not only Hans Löffler. It has been also a Polish designer and artist, Jowita Kepka. It has been, there are at least 3 designers in Berlin who do this on the side, which are Till Sperle, Manuel Bürger, and Manuel Reda, and Laura Catania and Thomas Spalek. And these are people that are always challenging themselves. So we take their own aesthetic and visual ambitions very seriously. So we also just give some portion of the decisions to their hands. Manuel, for example, has invited us to his own pedagogical sessions where we sit also with his students and talk about this decision. The design is nevertheless never to divide or to separate from the content. We are very, even though it's 10 times more work, we try to do this way that everybody reads texts. So this is not something that is given, but the designers need to also reflect on the things that we're publishing. And in that sense, we have also taken some measures editorially that influence that labor. For example, we'd never show installation views. We always show artworks. and artworks that can live in the form or can be translated into the paper without losing aura, so that they can appear and in its full strength, in their full strength like that. We have developed so many things together in that sense, in which, for example, the chapters that we do special divisions that sometimes the chapters and how they deal with the artworks, it's always a conversation, as if we would be curating a show in a physical space, which is a lot of fun. And last but not least, it's also a dedication to the meaning of text and printed media itself. So I think these are not unusual departing points, but it's definitely embedded into a tradition of printed media in the 20th century, but yet it's always fueled by some lacks or improvements that we see in the usage of digital platforms to share knowledge. So, for example, the headline is also called a meme. Every text and every image has now, happily, with the work of Emily Jakubek, has a code. You can listen to a description of the image, and you can also get the text read. So we found also new devices to do that, and but also media partners such as Refugee Worldwide, or a few years ago, Kashmir Radio, podcasts or digital platforms that would be interested in also thinking along what we've been doing and also influencing its public appearance. So if I could recommend something is, maybe to try to always try to look at your own practice from another perspective, even if you don't feel experienced in that. I guess this is what we've been doing with the designers, always trying to think the practice from our own perspective and from the other. Yeah. I hope they would reassure this statement.
Very thoughtful.
Yeah.
It gives me a lot to think about, but it's something I've been thinking about, not doing so much in just Latin writing systems, but to explore some of the other writing systems. And you hit so many of them that I'm just sort of impressed. That the accessibility would be something you'd have to do more digitally, I would think. So I'll just
And in
think.
that case, a crucial work is being done by associate editors, people that we invite. They understand how to deal with Arabic, Persian, or Hebrew, Abecedary, or Cyrillic. So these are things that scholars are trained to leave aside, because everybody is predominantly sharing their research in English, but there is an understanding there that it's very precious, that can be activated. And that's what we try to do, based, of course, on the trust that even though I can't speak Arabic or can't read Arabic, that this will be in line of what the paper aims to be. Thank you for your question and remarks. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Akansha.
Thank you. This looks incredible. The design is something that is especially brilliant. I want to ask you, I just had a question about each issue is multilingual, if I'm not wrong, right? Like all different. So two-part question. One is there a reason for that? Why? Was it always like this, or did you, like, as circulation increased, you decided to add more languages? do you have a network of writers? Are they all based in Berlin? Are they from all over? How do you kind of, source the content or reach out to people?
Thank you for your question. I'm gonna connect it to Katerina's question. If we receive submissions, or each edition is pre-selected, curated by Arts of the Working Class. So I feel that the questions are connected. So we do accept texts, and mostly we try to accept every text, even though that's a lot of work, because sometimes people approach us and we barely have a conversation. It's just through emails. Sometimes texts are already ready, so people need to open up, and that would be the only prerequisite to for us to have a conversation, is that there needs to be an openness to revise text. We are intensely critical, mostly with ourselves, and that might we have a endless list of lots of frictions in that sense, but we like that. We like to have these conversations and challenge everyone who is willing to also present their work in a way that it's always trying for the best. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, and that happens both in the side of commissions and the submissions. Commissions have been done mostly through third parties. So the first 2 years, it was solely me, Alina, and Paul, and then Hallie Frost and Dalia Maini, who joined the editorial team. But we decided to always open up, and Meenakshi Tirukode, scholar, wonderful anthropologist based in New Delhi, would always come back and forth with ideas. She had, and she has, a very specific dynamic and pace. So she would always come back, and it was really nice to have this flow. Whilst, for example, Boaz Levin, one of our allies from, operating not only from Tel Aviv, but also from Berlin specifically. Now he's a curator in CO Berlin. He would always bring a completely different perspective, but very methodic, very meticulous, and very precise. So that would mean also a very specific time frame in which we would work, and we rarely would say no to a proposal for an associate editor. I mean, no is never an answer. It's rather like, why? Or maybe this doesn't fit. What about another time or another form? And that happens not only to text, but to artworks. Artworks and text-owned artists in every issue are always related to another kind of contingency, another kind of time frame, and that is also looking into the international agendas where exhibitions are taking place, exchanges are taking place, and also for us, and for me specifically, because I sell the ads and take care of media partnerships, also ingrained in a form of an economy of attention, deliberately, and at the same time trying to also challenge that. Meaning we need to circulate not only on the streets, but we have to circulate in most fairs, most institutions. So we are also on this peripheries of the art market and the academic bubble and everything else, and can also slide between them. So this is somehow an irritation, mostly it's an irritation to read this paper, but that's yeah, what we want. It's a beautiful irritation, I can assure you. Or if you have read the paper already, I hope that this has been also the case. Yeah. Shall we do a break and meet again at 9:40, 3:40 your time, or would that be okay, Matthias? Is that okay?
Yeah, sounds good.
Or does okay, wonderful. So
In
see
8
you
minutes.
at exactly. Okay, thank you. Hey everyone. Ready when you are. Shall we start with a small recap? I literally flew through 24 issues with you, which I hopefully was which I hope I was it was clear enough to see as forms of relatability, relationability, and frequency. And I have shared with you 5 issues from the 25th till the 29th. And I thought if you had the chance to read it, we could pick one and use the next 30 minutes to go through it, to have a dive through the structure of arts of the working class as it is now, or as it was until last year. Yes. So who had the chance to read the issues or go through them? Akanksha? Okay, Vitor says only part of 25, but why not? Nice.
Yeah, I also had parts of 25.
Okay, so I'll just pick one randomly then. Nice. I think this is also a way to read it, just the poetry. So I'll pick the last one. Do you see that? Do you see it? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Wonderful. So the last issue is one of 5 from Burst of Solidarity. And with this, we had one of the most turbulent editorial processes. Why? Because the current situation, the censorship happening towards people that show solidarity to Palestine, the occupation of the term and the ways and the usage of the word anti-Semitism, and how this has been used for interest from the far right to find ways of narrowing the funding and visibility structure for projects and agents of a more transdisciplinary and anti-colonial, anti-racist discourses. At the same time, we see that Arts of the Working Class has been also facing legal and political challenges coming from not only funders but also partners that insist of certain kind of diligency in treating the current atmosphere like so carefully that everybody that has worked with us so far can feel safe. So it's difficult to navigate this, and yet we finally made this piece on unions. Unions was one of 5 forms of creating collectivity and showing solidarity, and ironically, this is where we landed in 2023. Burst of Solidarity was raising a question, meaning is, if we're solidary, when are we solidary? To whom? For what? Are we expecting something? Or the how do expectations draw, and that seen in how cultural activism has also taken a very intensive course. The meme and the headline of this was "Sorry, insufficient funds, goodbye, goodbye," looking into how the defunding of Berlin as a program coming from the CDU and the state of Berlin is literally happening as we speak. And there is certainly a lot of resistance to that, but we see with the kind of reactionary movements, reactionary moments in culture happening now vividly. So the paper is as differentiated as possible. We wanted to show solidarity to those suffering from the climate and the conflicts since October 7th, the attacks of Hamas, but mostly the brutal consequences for Palestinians in the Gaza Strip specifically, but also shedding a light to something that, or the notions of the political struggle that are just way too old. And why this is so important here is because we had a collaboration with the Kunstmuseum Stuttgart for a very specific exhibition on the works and the portraits from the new objectivity during the Weimar Republic. And at the same time, we decided to show solidarity with Palestinians in the current climate that we are facing. So we have here two paintings. One is by Heinz Hamish from the year 1931, and from Semyon Trikov from 1948, 56. This is so much what's happening here. First is from Hamish. So this is 2 years before the fascists, the Nazis, come to power in 1933, and this female figure is almost petrified, sculpturally objectified in a way, but this figure is looking ahead and covering partially her gaze. And it's kind of clear that this is also facing or like looking into the future, but at the same time, this is an unfinished painting. So there is something uncanny of it. And the decision of putting here next to this portrait called The Shepherd's Daughter of a young girl holding a watermelon, which is already inscribed into the vocabulary of the struggle of Palestinians unable to exercise their sovereignty as a nation, but also as a group of people in siege. It's also coming from another context, namely from a painter that is actually Russian. So there is so much tension here that it also allowed for this cover to be also as airy as possible. This issue was created in collaboration with Anne Wied, who was the curator in charge of the exhibition, but who left the project half a year before it finished due to private decisions. But in the context of the lines of conflict that we just mentioned, it was important for us to raise questions that also deal immediately with not only with forcible displacement, collective punishment, disproportionate violence, not only in the Middle East, not only in Israel, Palestine, but also worldwide. And with that, we created the possibilities out of this collaboration with the museum in not only reacting to the exhibition and being part of it, but creating a summit of art workers to look into conditions in which we create forms of solidarity as forms of labor in precarious conditions. A wonderful example of this online and physical meetings that we had in Stuttgart, not at the museum, but at the Künstlerhaus, which is the house of artists, with back then, meaning at the end of last year, with the direction of creator Eric Golostone, looking into forms of bureaucratic actions that are necessary to turn forms of oppression visible. So Ai Wen-yin and Yiren Cao contributed with one of a few keynotes that we had during these meetings with the Solidarity Trinity that I would recommend you dearly to read. If you don't, if it's difficult in the layout of the paper as a PDF format, please find it also on our website. This was a 20 minutes long presentation, but what I can, I mean, if we would have had more time, I would have recommended to read this together, but we might have to leave this for another moment. I would like to go briefly through the issue with you and show you some of the moments and efforts that we have been improving with our current team since the end of 2022. So, and that is the insertion of simple language, texts that try to condense the complexity of the different essays that we publish. But we try to also leave that complexity exist next to the clarity of a text translated into simple language that tries to look into ways of creating a thread throughout the issue without without them being dislocated. For example, next to this issue, this text by Dalia Maini on the paradox of political corruption, according to her her research on the work of Fred Moten and Stefan Harney, two cultural theorists that look into forms of justice and community making, that might seemingly have nothing to do with the text on the left page, but it's already embedded for another level, like a meta level of not only discussion but also of enjoyment of the context of the reading. As you can see here, this is also a fortunate example in which we also place advertisement. For example, this slogan from the theater in West Berlin called Schaubühne, where "This place is evil" is a quote from a piece by Jana Tönes called "In Memory of Doris Bitter," which is actually happening now. But "This place is evil" is already in communion with the paradox of political corruption, which is the focus of this text. And next to it, a text by a further editor, wonderful Elisa Fuensalida, activist from Peru, has been It's a wonderful experience, a deepening experience in grassroots labor, and looks into the different forms of elements of solidarity within the climate justice struggle that might seem to have nothing to do with this text or this other one in the spread, but are condensed in the chapter called Elements of Solidarity. Yeah, this is one of also I really enjoy this chapter cover with tools of division, having one of the most denigrated and discriminated figures in history, a pregnant woman. And at the same time, we have this, we're playing with the, let's say, iconographic, iconologic level of this portrait figure with the iconography of Christmas. And we do it also beautifully, or more specifically, Paul Sochatzky, who is known for his cryptic, mythologically loaded drawings that he always infiltrates in every issue. Yes. Next to this, the Tree of Unity and Happiness, we have also in simple language someone that is homeless, but at the same time is one of the most interesting people talking about unions. And it's a wonderful story that I would encourage you to people. In the work of Inchi Embiner, Nobody Here Series from 2000, that resemble so much of the nowhereness and ruinous landscape that we have to consume every day on our Instagram feeds, followed by an essay by Dana Koppel, researcher and PhD candidate on labor and unionizing movements in the US, and who has a practice herself on organizing in and against institutions. And this text allows for that. And it's kind of interesting how this Selbstbildnis als Malerin by Kate Dean Bitt, so the self-portrait as a painter, has already, seen how let's say, the first wave of feminist struggle is still in the shadows of the new objectivity during the 20s and 30s, but it's very much connected to the injustices in the art world today. I would like to just briefly share a quote from this text that makes her work so fierce, so fearless. Is the risks of union organizing in museums, verbal abuse, targeted discipline, and/or job loss, diminishing possibilities for a career in the art field broadly, are serious because unionization poses a real threat to institutional hierarchy and the hegemony of the capitalist class. Those risks, however, are not confined to museum unionism. They surface wherever organizing threatens the unspoken role of the institution and, crucially, its leaders and funders in maintaining racial capitalism. End of quote. For now, a beautiful spread follows this essay, and a wonderful piece by Heike Freund and Lisa Susanne Schorm on defunding Berlin. Heiko and Lisa have been also crucial allies of the paper, being one of the first pickup stations in Berlin. At some points, their front and the door, the entrance of the building, where they have this beautiful exhibition space called Kreuzberg Pavilion, with one of the most fundamental necessary practices of exhibition making, and among others with the Project Art Festival in Berlin, taking care of other artist runs and self-organized spaces, was just so filled with needles and trash that vendors would leave, or people would leave around the papers, that they had to say goodbye to this incredible work that they were doing. And we were at that point we were unable to help otherwise than just being there constantly, specifically Paul, who has been taking care of the distribution intensely and wisely since the beginning, until we found places where we could hide the paper, and for those who need to pick it up at 3 a.m. in the morning, they could do it somewhere else. Also a further invitation to deepen this beautiful text, yeah, stay with me here, even though I'm just gonna cut it even with a spread where paintings from the exhibition in Stuttgart end up also communicating with this painting from another exhibition at the Folkwang Museum in Essen from Ludwig von Hoffmann, is already reflecting all the, let's say, 20 years of difference, but also with social and social upheavals and transformations happening to their time. Yeah. Any remarks or questions until now that you might have been also dragging along after the first part of this session? Otherwise, I would come back to a text to finish the session, but I see Pradeep raising their hand. Hi.
Thank you for the amazing presentation. I had one question or doubt. I don't know exactly what that is. Actually, two of them now that I think of it. How do you characterize working class in, let's say, our century? There is no clear divide in that sense of between the proletariat and bourgeoisie that existed earlier. Everybody is a capitalist in some sense and also a working class in some sense. Or let's say that the working class is divided, sort of the gap between what used to be like the middle class is so huge at this point that there are no exact demarcations of who owns and who is sort of being exploited in that sense. Everybody is that simultaneous, you being an entrepreneur of yourself such that you exploit yourself on other platforms such as LinkedIn or social media exists simultaneously as you also are the worker. That is one sort of political question that at an individual level, but also on the level of because you sort of actively work on the streets as newspapers in that sense, and also how do you balance the local politics with the global politics? That is the other sort of part. Yes.
Thank you so much for this wonderful question. Yes. for us, the working class, as described and also historically known as a class or within the hierarchy or the class hierarchy in Europe has been framed, doesn't exist anymore. It stopped when the welfare state was already being undermined with Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan. So this is, like, historically speaking, something that doesn't appear anymore, but as a like ideal figure, historical figure of the worker. Yet the worker, as we know today, this is everyone working during even worse conditions. It's very hard to for us to understand it as the working class if there's not a system that can hold it. So since this system doesn't exist anymore, but it's only pure and sheer exploitative capitalism, we try to resist the idea that we are like aestheticizing something historical or something that it's also as a very painful loss, which is the possibility of giving workers fair labor conditions and living conditions. And this is not only a belief that we have that the term working class cannot, it's outdated because the system is over, but rather that the working class as a figure in society has been hijacked by the far right. So there is this promise, or you can see people crying, saying how scared they are that the country that they know, which is the US, has been lost, and the only person that can save it is Donald Trump, is a clear example of that. So you're choosing someone that is pretending to count for your rights, but it's doing exactly the opposite, which is leaving you to the log. And I do think there is an urgency to revise these problems over and over again. There are also so the question was, how do we deal this internationally and locally? So internationally, where I come from, there is no middle class or like a working class division. There is la clase popular and the rest. So the so-called popular class, there's a lot of people just like trying to survive in a system that is just, yeah, basically hijacked by a racial capitalist colonizing structures that are there since way too long, since the beginning of this country, since this country ever existed, right? So in India is different, and Poland as well. So we do look at this with a particular through the particularity of the experience of the working people, that, and those who are not, let's say, would rather disengage of being called a working person. For example, those who sell the paper, they would find another way of dealing with that currency. We're unable to give any protection that the system is also not giving to ourselves, and that we cannot give to ourselves. But the kind of exchange that we're giving is, looking for those lost values, to which we clinch also in only a very idealistic way. This sounds already too dark, but I hope can sensitively answer, if not only partially, your question, Pradeep.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Hi. How
Hi,
do you
Michelle.
hey, how do you usually find contributors? I like do you normally work with people who are like, you know, through networks, or do you have like an open call for things, or like how do you find people? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think Akanksha and Katerina also raised the question of submissions and commissions. And this is basically always through conversation. And we try to also look into what is possible at the moment, and also the work of people that we admire, that we try to put together. So there are certainly clashes in that sense, where there are worldwide known artists that also appear in our paper, but we don't discriminate in whether in that way or another. So there are people that pitch their own works that they might do on Sundays, and that we would also consider them for the issue. But not only that, one of my favorite examples is the grassroots issue that I have also shared with you. It's number 26. The cover has the work of Andrei Mashenko, and Andrei is one of Arts of the Working Class vendors, and he has been selling the paper for years until he approached us and told us that he also paints. So we decided to not only include his work in our issue, but also engage with a place where these works could be also exhibited, which was the Mehrgeneration House in Berlin, one of the pickup stations of the paper so far. Yes. It's interesting that I caught myself unconsciously saying it's his work, but I'm not sure if this is also the term he would use for his drawings or paintings. But it's interesting how this is also intertwined with the selling of the paper, and the fact that through a physical impediment, he can no longer work in a construction site where he used to work before selling the paper. Yes. So, yes, Vitor.
Thank you for the presentation. I was wondering exactly about the dissemination strategies that you apply. You talked a little about that during the presentation, but I wanted to know especially about the network of the vendors, and if you, I believe you don't know everyone, but if you know someone and if you exchange for their work, or, and especially if you know where do they sell, like I think in here in my contest, I don't can't think many places that you can sell an art journal. So I'm very interested in that too. So thank you.
Thank you for your question. Happy that we can close this session with that one, because as we said before, we don't like to track what people are reading, or like we like the idea that we cannot do it, and that we cannot tell what our demographics are of readers, but that's the same for the vendors. There's a certain anonymity that allows this freedom, this informality, this illegality that is, it's a dynamic that allows people to do this whenever they want, and out of a base of generosity and interest. And I had the chance many times to sit in the metro in Berlin I'm too shy to say like, hi, I do the paper. But I do see people how they approach the paper differently and do a little resume about what is inside it and say this is a multilingual paper. I really like this specific piece, or this is more interesting than the other one. And I sit there and yeah, crumble out of enthusiasm, and yeah, I'm too shy to ask further. And also because there are regular contributors to the paper that also use the paper as they want. For example, Rico and Jackie, who want to periodically write, like as if they would be writing chapter after chapter of their own book, not really paying attention what we want to do, but they are happy to have the space and do it, and they also invite other friends. And it's of course let's say a parallel process, because the conversations take also a different temporality and different pace. But yeah, that also is the beauty of having a team as we have it now, because Amelie and Paul would have a way, an easier way to deal with their texts, or a former editor of the paper, Ida Nahari, would sit down and go through the text specifically. So far, I didn't have the time myself to edit one of them, but I can just tell through the experience of my colleagues that yeah, and through our of course personal encounters, that no matter how imperfect or perfect the outcome is for its authors or editors, this is a rewarding moment when it's coming out of fresh from the press. And with that, I would like to invite you to read the issues for our next session, and read the paper that Erin Segal also shared on the Encyclopedia for Radical Care. We will have her in our next session, and it would be wonderful if you can also have the chance to look into their publications, that yeah, that they would be also easy willing to share. But since the encyclopedia is not ready yet, I cannot place it in the drive for now. But yes, looking forward to that session, and to more questions. And if you are by reading or after this meeting, spinning on your own ideas, what would you like to publish, if you would like to publish anything at all, or how would you use this kind of platforms if you don't have yourself any yet. But for that, I'm sure and I'm willing to hear more about you in 2 weeks. So thank you, everybody who is not part of this workshop, listening outside, and I wish you a good time.
Thank you.
And also,
Thank
if
you.
anyone doesn't have access to the drive, let me know and I will provide the access.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Be
Thank you,
well.
Maria.
Talk soon. Write me anytime. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, thank you.